Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I'm your host, Ekun, and today we've got something really gripping. We're diving into a professional after-action security briefing. Specifically, we're looking at a recent, highly targeted anti-kidnapping operation over in Nigeria. It is literally a textbook example of just how effective community-led security tactics are becoming. We're going to break down exactly how this whole crisis unfolded and was managed, using data and reports straight from the ground. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the official order of operations for our debrief today. First, we'll get the sitrep on the Igboho abduction. Second, the operation, specifically the intelligence and tracking. Third, the current status of the rescues and captives. Fourth, the protocol for the law enforcement handoff. And lastly, our key takeaways on community intelligence sharing.
All right, Section 1, sitrep, the Igboho abduction. Let's look at the initial incident.
3. That number right there, that was the catalyst for this entire operation. Based on the incoming intelligence reports, 3 local residents were abruptly abducted and dragged deep into a nearby forest in the Igboho area. Now, in any kidnapping scenario, those initial hours are just incredibly tense. But establishing the exact number of victims, that's absolutely crucial. It's the vital first step for any responding security force so they can actually calibrate the rescue efforts accurately. So, who actually mobilized to respond to this? Well, it was the Ekun Security Network. If you're not familiar, this is a heavily community-focused volunteer security outfit founded by Sunday Adeyemo, who you probably know better as Sunday Igboho. When that awful intel came in about the 3 missing residents, it was the volunteer operatives from this specific network who rapidly deployed to track the suspects. They're a really prime example of community-led security stepping up to the plate to directly handle severe, immediate local threats.
Moving right along to Section 2, Operation, Intelligence, and Tracking. Let's talk about executing the rescue.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact procedural flow. We've got a really clear 3-phase timeline here. It kicked off with the initial phase, literally the exact moment they got actionable intel on the abduction. From there, the operatives rapidly pivoted into the search phase, successfully tracking these suspects right into the dense forest. And finally, the action phase, which is the apprehension and immediate interrogation. Now, stepping back to look at this, and my assessment here as your host, Ekun, is that this highlights a massive operational challenge. I mean, think about the intense difficulty of balancing rescue speed with victim safety. The operatives had to move incredibly fast to track the bandits down, right? But they also had to execute the takedown carefully enough to not endanger the captives in the crossfire. It's a real tightrope walk.
But because of that incredibly rapid, coordinated tracking, the security team was actually able to confront the suspects directly. And honestly, this is wild. The suspects confessed to their involvement in the crime right then and there during the preliminary field interrogation. I mean, that is a massive operational victory. Getting a confession on the spot completely validates the initial intelligence. It tells the operatives, okay, we absolutely have the right guys, and it gives them immediate, real-time data to help locate the victims.
Which brings us to Section 3, Status, Rescues, and Captives. Let's do a quick victim assessment. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes the current, on-the-ground reality of the operation. As you can see, 2 victims were rescued completely unharmed. That is a huge sigh of relief and a direct testament to that highly effective tracking we just talked about. However, 1 victim is still held captive. Look, in any professional security briefing, we have to present the facts objectively, right? So we have to call this what it is, a partial success. It's a bittersweet outcome that demands continued, intense operational focus.
And because of that 1 outstanding captive, this operation is absolutely far from over. The security outfit has explicitly assured the public that the search for the remaining victim is ongoing. The operatives haven't just packed up and gone home. Not at all. The intelligence gathering and the tracking efforts are still highly active out in the field as they work to bring that final individual back safely.
Next up is Section 4, Protocol, Law Enforcement Handoff. Let's look at the chain of custody.
Okay, as your host, Ekun, I really want to emphasize that this sequence is absolutely critical for anyone studying volunteer security groups. You can't just catch suspects in the forest and call it a day. There has to be a rigid legal process. Step 1 was handled perfectly by the Ekun operatives, securing the initial arrest and getting that preliminary confession. But then we hit the critical next move, Step 2. A formal physical handoff of the suspects over to the formal police in Okeila. This strict adherence to protocol ensures that Step 3, the formal investigation and prosecution, can proceed entirely by the book. Without this proper chain of custody, all that incredibly dangerous work done out in the forest, it could literally be thrown out in a courtroom.
So what we're looking at here is a highly specialized division of labor. The Ekun network utilized their deep local knowledge and agility for the tracking, the immediate rescue, and the apprehension. Then, the OK Law police take the baton for what they specialize in: the formal, legal investigation, and the eventual prosecution. It's this beautifully specialized process where community defense and formal law enforcement just perfectly interlock with one another.
And finally, Section 5, Takeaways, Community Intelligence Sharing. Let's look at the commander's debrief.
Right after the operation, the outfit's founder, Sunday Igboho, delivered this key statement. He praised his operatives for their strict professionalism, which is absolutely a nod to that successful tracking and the proper police handoff we just analyzed. But even more importantly, he strongly urged residents to continue providing useful information. Remember, this entire operation was triggered by an initial intelligence report from the community itself. If the public hadn't spoken up, those two victims might never have been rescued.
So the crucial point is this specific breakdown of who actually needs to be involved. The report explicitly identifies 3 essential intelligence providers: local residents, traditional rulers, and community leaders. For volunteer security groups to actually be effective against kidnappers, they can't just operate in a vacuum. No way. They absolutely require a constant, trusting flow of information from these 3 pillars of the community so they can combat criminal activities proactively.
Which brings us to the most pressing question we're left with today. As the dedicated search for that final captive in the Ora Igbamina forest continues, how will sustained intelligence sharing shape the future of community-led security operations? I mean, it is overwhelmingly clear that the speed and success of outfits like the Ekun network rely entirely on the eyes and ears of the public. I'm Ekun. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep your focus on the facts.